Tegan and Sara, Canada's twin sister duo. They've been making their alt-folk music for well over a decade now, starting out in high school back in Calgary. And they've had this big, if not cult, following. But with their latest CD, it's their 7th studio album. It's called Heartthrob. They're getting closer than ever to a new global audience. And if you don't know Tegan and Sara yet, like the title of this hit pop song of theirs that's all over Canadian radio these days, they, especially in the past year, are ever more getting closer. Tegan and Sara, they're playing to a packed house at the Imperial Theatre here in Quebec City this evening, but they came into studio just before sound check time to talk about taking on the mainstream.
All I wanna get is a little bit closer. All I wanna know is, can you come a little closer? Here comes a breath before we get a little bit closer. Here comes a rush before we touch. Come a little closer. And the sun is finally setting. The night sky is changing overhead. It's not just a physical.
Tegan, Sara in the studio. I can just hear the crowd screaming at this point. So who started singing that? Who was the first voice that we heard?
That was Tegan, me. I wrote that song about halfway through our process writing our latest record, and I'd been writing lots of guitar music, and Sara was basically, bring me your best stuff, step it up. So I wrote Closer.
So Tegan, you were in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Sara, you live now in Montreal.
Yes.
You've lived for a while in Montreal.
About 10 years now, yeah.
And this latest album of yours, this is where all this mainstream talk is starting. Because you guys have been around for a while.
We have. We've been doing this since 1998, the year we graduated high school. So we've enjoyed, as you said, a sort of cult status internationally. And this record has sort of catapulted us into the mainstream.
Like how? What are you starting to notice?
Well, as soon as the record came out, we got to go on the Ellen show, and we did Letterman, and we did Conan, and we did Jay Leno. I mean, more TV than we've ever been given. I mean, we've always, as you said, kind of had this really amazing cult following, and we've been critically acclaimed, and we have a really great fan base. And in no way do we feel like we were jeopardizing, losing that fan base, because this record is still quintessential Tegan and Sara. You still got the heartbreak and the really, dark, deep lyrics, but it's juxtaposed with a bit more, pop music, which I think is really popular right now. And we're 80s kids, we grew up on Cyndi Lauper and David Bowie. So when we got into the studio for this record, we just kind of allowed more of that to come out. And it's been great. We've been embraced by everyone from the Coachellas and Lollapaloozas of the world, but also...
Where you're performing as well, too.
Yeah, we're doing
Osheaga.
Yeah, we're still doing all of those really amazing festivals that are, I think loaded up with really critically acclaimed, amazing artists. But we're also getting to do a lot more of the mainstream stuff. We got covered by Glee this year, and like I said, we got to go on Ellen. So it's kind of cool. I think it's time. We've been doing this for 14 years. It was time for us to take a step towards the mainstream.
Polaris Prize nomination.
Very cool.
That came out in July, just last month.
It did, yeah. We were really excited. This is our 2nd nomination. So it's wonderful to be recognized by your peers. And even though I sometimes struggle with the idea of prizes and people winning based on, I don't know what stipulations, but it really is a wonderful acknowledgement.
Okay, let's go back. Tegan and Sara, let's hit this one. So people would have known you. How far back with this song?
This is a live version of a song called Living Room, and this came out 2002 on a record called If It Was You. And this was If It Was You is our first time working with more pop kind of producers. So this live version is more organic feeling, but this was the record where we started playing around with keyboards and synths and those kinds of things and trying to emulate a bit more of our pop roots.
Living Room. So who's singing here?
This is also me. It feels like the Tegan hour. Like I'm like, please, another song by me. But this was like, a song actually that we ended up collaborating on quite a bit. Sarah sings most of the song with me. And again, this is a fan favorite that we still play. Like, 10 years later from it being released, this closes the show almost every single night. So, it's like I said, the Tegan and Sara that people are getting to know now in the mainstream is still kind of the same Tegan and Sara that's been here all along. Maybe with better hair and style, but, still the same old Tegan and Sara.
And twins, though I can tell the difference. You're identical twins.
We are, yeah.
That's what our mom claims.
And
yeah.
you have a very cool mom.
Our mom is really cool. Yeah, she travels with us a lot, and she works in the school system, so she has summers off. So we've dragged her to India. We've taken her to Australia. She just spent a month with us in Europe.
And you've performed in all these places.
Oh yeah. We go all over the world. I mean, we have a really strong following internationally. We just went to Southeast Asia for the first time. We played in Indonesia and in Singapore. We spent a lot of time in Europe, countries like France, Germany. The UK is great for us. So yeah, we're really lucky. We get to spend a lot of time traveling, seeing the world, but also playing music.
How many days on the road?
I mean, we try not to do more than 4 or 5 weeks at a time and then try to have 2 weeks off between every tour. But I mean, on a record cycle, like a 2-year record cycle, we'll probably play a couple hundred shows. I mean, we play a lot.
Best thing to take on the road, you never would travel without it, is?
I need like lots of entertainment. So iPods, stocked full of new music and television.
Such as?
I'm a lot of Canadian bands right now on my iPod. Like, I love the new Osheaga record. We toured with a Canadian band called Diana earlier this year. Just toured with Bernice, which is another Canadian band. We just did a few shows with Lights.
Actually, another band that's nominated for was longlisted for the Polaris, Magical Clouds out of Montreal. Absolutely amazing. Love that record. Yeah.
And then lots of TV.
A lot of TV.
Yep.
And favorite TV shows would be?
Oh my goodness, there's a new show on Netflix that we just all binge watched. Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
Love it.
And binge watch, that's the latest, right?
Yeah,
You're not just watching 1 or 5.
No,
it's just like a weekend.
The whole thing. Yeah, you just devour it. So you're always looking for new stuff. I'm watching Shameless. I love Game of Thrones. I mean, we watch, I feel like we pretty much watch everything at this point. There's a lot of downtime, a lot of travel time. So it's a great way to kill hours.
Okay, another song here.
Next up, we're going to play Back in Your Head, which is...
Right, which is 2007. So there's a 5-year gap between the last.
And this was an exciting time. We worked with the producer Chris Walla, who from Death Cab for Cutie. He made this record with us, and this was a big turning point for us.
We thought this was our big step into the mainstream. We thought this was our big pop song. It did well for us. It was definitely one of our biggest records, but certainly by Heartthrob standards, it's not our biggest record.
Tegan and Sara, In Your Head, and the song is about?
Well, I sort of had this idea that, when you're in a long-term relationship, which I was at the time when I was writing the song, and that things are likely going to come to an end, and you're still sort of hanging on, maybe a little bit of sentimental sort of nostalgia or whatever. And I had this idea, I just want back in your head. Like, I want to be back in there. And there's another line that follows that: I'm not unfaithful, but I'll stray. And I think for me, I was in my mid-20s and I was starting to learn that there's a difference between being monogamous physically and being monogamous emotionally. And I think, I've always been a monogamous person. I'm not a cheater and none of that. But, your mind starts to go other places. And that's what the song was about.
I remember when I heard this song, Sarah and I were writing for the con, and I'd gone to Montreal for 3 months just to hang out. I was also kind of going through a very big breakup transition time in my life, and I remember when Sarah sent this, it was a lot slower. It was quite a bit slower, actually. And I remember thinking that she had struck gold. And people always wonder if Sarah and I are competitive with each other, and we're not, because we are truly a partnership.
Tegan wrote Closer, and I'm just like, I'm going to ride her coattails all the way to pop radio status.
And that's what I thought with Back in Your Head. I was like, Sarah's done it. I'm going to get an extra bedroom on my house.
No, it's really cool. And I look out every night, especially a song like this where everyone sings along and is so excited. And I know that they've made it about their life and their relationships, not about mine. So it's sort of the balance you have as a public figure when you're writing about your life.
And people have talked about you guys being role models as well.
Yeah, right from the beginning of our career, we were teenagers, so we were sort of pushed into it right away. It was like we were 18 years old signing a record deal, and everybody was asking questions about, at the time, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera were really famous, so everybody was like, are you going to be like that? Are you going to dance? Are you going to play pop music? And we were like, no, we're alternative. We grew up in an alternative household, a single parent. We're feminists. We're very outspoken. We're very political. And we're also gay. And so there was just a really different path set out in front of us. And so we had to sort of, you know, we kind of had to pay our dues in a really different way. And part of that was having to experience a lot of times, you know, homophobia and misogyny and sexism on the radio or in the media or with our audiences. We toured extensively in the early 2000s, opening for everyone from Neil Young to Ryan Adams. And you get in front of a big audience of people and people are like, you know, like, take your shirt off and those kinds of things. And we had to learn how to deal with all of that stuff. And growing up in the sort of media and the public eye and growing up in front of an audience that was constantly wanting to know, like, what do your girlfriends do and what do they look like and what's your relationship like and do you guys fight as twins? And there was a lot of pressure on us. There was a lot of really hard years where we were trying to figure out who we were and how best to share that with people, but keep a piece of it for ourselves too. You know, your private life is so important. So, and I think we have become, I think, great role models, not only for young people, but I think for a wide range of people. I think we live a very healthy, positive lifestyle and we, you know, balance this world very well.
I think so. I mean, one of the big things that frustrated us really early in our career was that people would say, oh, you're that band that just has like gay girls in your audience, as if that was like, I mean, certainly it was reductive and offensive, you know, even if it were true, what was so wrong with that? You know, we never could figure it out. But we have seen so many different types of people, parents, kids, men, women, straight, gay.
Mainstream,
it is. And we really feel fortunate. Yeah, we love that. We love it.
Should we go out on a mainstream song?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, what is it here for Quebec? Because this is another market for you too.
This is, you know, for Quebec, it's like we've always enjoyed a cult status here.
I mean, Sarah moved here for goodness sakes. I mean, how much more desperate can we get? She loves it here.
Part of why I liked Quebec, though, was that we didn't have a huge audience here. This was a place where I could feel very, like, anonymous and have my own life and my own independence. But we are trying to make inroads here for sure. This is a song we're hoping will do well in Quebec. It's called Goodbye Goodbye, and it's off our new record. And I don't know if it will or if it won't, but it's fun to try anyways.
Goodbye. Come back soon.
We would love to.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.